Hi everyone, this is For the Love of Comics, and in this video we'll be doing a quick edition and color comparison between two editions of the same volume of Bone. This is volume 1 out from Boneville, and we're going to be taking a look at the Scholastic edition versus the original cartoon books edition. The Scholastic edition is a colorized version of the original black and white. If you're interested in this series, including in an introduction, check out my Bone playlist linked above. One of the first things we can note is the slight difference in size between the editions. The Scholastic color versions have been reduced slightly from the original trim size of the comics, and therefore from the size of the original collected editions. Considering that the printing inside has quite a lot of white space above and below, particularly below, which isn't necessarily the case in the original printing, this makes for a smaller print area for sure. Other than that, the original hardcover also came with a dust jacket with a plain but embossed and etched cover and embossed and etched spine, and had end papers that could be used to provide this map, which of course the paperback editions do not have. The original hardcover also had the original parts system and contained a page before the full title page that said Part 1 Vernal Equinox. Mentions of part and vernal equinox are absent from the colorized editions. Instead, the Scholastic color editions contain a name for every chapter in the book, the map for issue 1, Thorn for issue 2, for example, which were not part of the original comics and the original collections. Like the one volume edition, the color versions contain the name of the chapter and the name of the volume on the right and left hand side pages respectively. The original black and white editions contained no chapter or volume names anywhere on the page. So let's take a closer look at the color versus the black and white. From the very start, we can see that the color is not garish or lurid. It's quite pleasing to the eye as far as the shades and the gradients are concerned, but it does make a significant difference to the way the comic is read. We see that the plain white sky and the white of the stark desert that the Bone cousins are lost in are now separate quite distinctly into a blue and an orange brown, with the mountain in the middle being purple. The two inset panels have been filled in with blue as well, setting them off by color from the brown rather than by the white space. It's still an inset, the art is exactly the same, the layout is exactly the same, but there is a difference made to the way it appears. We can see that in the early pages, where it's mainly the characters talking to each other in a limited space, what we get from the recoloring is mainly that blue sky, orange sand. And I can't help but feel some bit of the heat of the desert, the starkness of it is lost with the addition of this brilliant blue and the orange. When we move on to scenes of action and movement, I think we can see some new differences in between the colorized and the black and white versions in the way that they affect our reading. Bone as a series is renowned for its highly kinetic style, and looking at scenes like this in black and white and color gives us a good idea, I think, of what really works as movement. Here are some more scenes of Fawn Bone walking in the desert, and we can see it's not just colors and shadings that have been added in the new editions, but also the sun in the top panel here. The transition from day to night in the original black and white happened only through the lengthening of the shadows and then a completely black sky with the foreground in white. In the colorized version, we can see that the blue sky is replaced slowly with an orange tint, which then becomes completely black with a blue tint coming over the stones and environments of Fawn Bone as he sleeps. Here we can see the same nighttime encounter as represented in the original high contrast black and white shadow work and the colorized version here. The colors are by no means limited. We've seen the grays and the blues and the oranges, and here we can see the coming of the morning represented through the change in color. If we look at the panel in which Fawn Bone discovers the valley, we can see that the magnificence and grandeur of the black and white is quite ably handled by the color. In fact, this might be one of those panels where the color really serves to bring out detail that you might otherwise have missed in the black and white, like a waterfall over here or the exact shadows of the clouds over there. Winter is interesting because it might almost already be black and white, and the recoloring does a nice subtle job of putting in the grays and the blues to accentuate what the original did. Here you can also see the difference in the little art pieces that serve as chapter openers. In trying to see what you prefer, the black and white or the original, I think it's always interesting to take a look at the action and movement scenes. The landscape and setting shots I think are easy to accept as appealing in color. But it seems to me that the black and white is a lot more dynamic. The color seems to make it static or stuck to a place in a way that the flow of the first original printing is somehow affected in the recolored version. Of course, this is just my opinion. I have to say, however, that it is nice to see the big red dragon in red. And then there's stuff like the last panel of issue 2, which I think gets something added to it with the colorization. The pink flowers on the trees around them are reminiscent of cherry blossoms because especially of the winter around them, and the pink hearts left behind in his trail end up as an enhanced sweet little picture from the original, which is already very beautiful. One of the things I'm less enamored by is the coloring of things at nighttime, particularly when they have the photo negative almost look that they had in the original black and white, which makes it feel a little creepier, a little starker. The woods are a little deeper. And as beautiful as this coloring is, it just doesn't have, for me, the same presence as the black and white does. Similarly, on this page, you can see that Jeff Smith is working with contrast and working with shadows and shapes so well in the black and white. Again, by adding color to the sound effects, it might be taking away from the original's power. At the end of the day, no matter what, black and white or color, Bone continues to be a great series. Whether you want to read it in the original, in which case I'd recommend the 1-volume edition, or the color in the 9 volumes of Scholastic straight paperbacks, you're going to enjoy this if you haven't read it before. The color may be more appealing to children or for people who just don't like black and white, but personally, I'd always recommend the black and white because the art and the movement and the mood is really enhanced by the contrast and by the apparent simplicity of the black and white. So that's it for a very quick comparison and look at the black and white and color versions of Bone. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And if you have any suggestions for us, please leave those below as well. Thank you.